Welcome to another edition of Trail Runner Nation. My name is Scott Warr.
And I'm Don Freeman. And we're doing something, Scott, we've done in the past, and that's bringing two of our very good friends together and kind of turning the mic over because they came up with this idea. We have on the podcast today Tim Twietmeyer. He's a legend in ultra running. Ultra Signup says he has 185 races under his belt. Plenty of them are silver buckles because he finished Western States 25 times under 24 hours. And he won the race 5 different times. That's 5 Cougars in his home. So if you need to borrow one for your own mantle, Tim might have one for you. And including Bob Crowley. Now, Bob's a great friend of ours. He's been on plenty of times, and he has a few races under his belt. 182 races. Nope. Ryan, fix that. He has 82 races and some notable finishes. Hard Rock, Western States, Tour de France, Tahoe 200, Moab 240, and 2016 She Rocks the Trail. So he throws that in there in the mix. The past president of ITRA, the International Trail Running Association. We welcome both Tim and Bob back to the podcast as we're in store for some fun, Scott.
Hey, wait. I did not know that Bob actually ran She Rocks the Trails. For those of you who don't know what that race is, it's a race put on by NorCal Ultras. And I think the idea is that it's a women-only race. Did you have to put on some makeup to run that race, Bob?
Do you know how hard it was to find a running skirt that fits me? I mean, either they were way too, puffy and made my ass look big, as Tim knows is a constant problem with me, or, they were way too tight and the chafing was off the charts. So it took a long time, but we found a beautiful pair. I've got the best pictures of my ultra running career from that event.
That's great. Well, a few weeks ago, we did something that we've never done before, and we took an old episode. It was stuff you don't do on the trails, and it was years ago. I can't even remember how many years ago it was. And Bob and Tim came on and helped teach us about things that you shouldn't do on the trail. And we loved that episode so much that a few weeks ago, we re-released it. We had editor Ryan go in and take out some good clips from that episode. And then Don and I did some narration around that. Well, it was so fun that Bob came up with the idea we should do another one, an updated one, and maybe skew it a little bit towards the Western States Endurance Run, which is coming up in 2 weeks. And they were gracious enough to carve out some time. This episode is going to be launched Friday before the start. So it starts on Saturday morning at 5 a.m. This is going to be going out on Friday morning. So if you want to, if you're running the race and you need some lighthearted banter, download this onto your listening device and you can spend an hour, or you could re-listen to it 24 to 30 times.
Hey, Tim,
come on, man, lighthearted banter, man. These are like secret tips of the road.
Yeah.
Oh,
come on, man.
This is like Indiana Jones stuff. I mean,
how did you guys come up with it? I mean, we receive a list of 14 things with some cryptic titles to them. We have no idea what's coming up. We're going to take a stab at it in TRN fashion and show our ignorance. But how did you come up with these 14 things? They look carefully crafted to me.
I have no idea. Where'd they come from, Tim?
Is this from observation? Is this from personal experience? Where did it come from?
All those races that you guys mentioned at the intro, we've seen ourselves and everyone else make plenty of mistakes. Plus, you guys were there. We worked Canyon's aid station twice now for that. One day when it was unseasonably hot, and then again this year. And then you guys are regulars down at El Dorado Bridge, and you see a lot of carnage down there. And so, we just keep our notebook handy, just like, note to self.
There's a
probably
notebook.
Don't want to do this. Don't want to do that.
There's a notebook.
Copious notes. Copious.
So many of them now. And these are, to be fair, I'll speak for myself. I've made almost every single one of these mistakes probably a number of times, and most of them in Western states, since I have an illustrious career of going 0 for 3 in Western states over a period of about 15 years before I finally finished it. So I can stand as Exhibit A on stupid stuff that you're not supposed to do.
Let's make no mistake. We are not pointing fingers here, right? Good. Well said, Bob. We're not just pointing fingers and making fun of other people. Mostly we're making fun of the mistakes that we have done ourselves and maybe seen other people do the same mistakes.
So
Or
let's
I've made the mistake, and then Tim makes fun of me, which is fair because
because he already did it too.
Yeah,
Let's kick this thing off.
right.
Give us the first cryptic title. Let's see if we can even get close. We assume it's trail related. That's kind of the theme. So we'll try to keep our guesses there. Let's start off with the first one. Bob, you going to read that off for us and tell us what we need to guess?
So the first one's titled "Toe, Blow, and Go."
Toe, blow, and go. I don't know how all of these are related. I could give you a definition for each one of them, but I don't see how it's related in one. Don, do you?
Yeah, well, no, but I mean, I'm getting, since that was your guess, I think I can top that. I think that it's pulling it into an aid station. You know something's going on, so you have the courage to take the shoe off, the sock off, and there it is, your toe. It's blowing up, but no time to mess around. Put it back on, your shoe back on, and go. I think that's toe,
nice.
blow, go. Yeah.
Nice. What is it, Bob?
You're in the same church. Wrong pew, Don.
Okay.
So it's when someone suggests, and you go ahead and accept that they tape your toes right before the race starts, and you've never done that before.
Oh,
but
good
they
move.
convince you should tape. So all of your toes are taped nice and tight and into the socks. Next morning you go up and you get up to Watson's Monument, right? The highest point of the race. And the altitude starts to set in and your feet start to swell.
Oh.
And you start to feel this tightness in your shoe. And you're like, oh God, what have I done? And, by the time you get to Lions Ridge, these things have blown up. Your feet have completely blown up. And by the time you get to Red Star Ridge, there's bloody carnage. Your foot is soaking wet, and it's not from getting wet in the snow. It's from all of the blisters exploding from you having wrapped up your toes way too tight. So that's the toe and the blow, and then it goes.
Oh boy. I don't know whether I've ever had that done. Maybe I didn't have any friends that were nice enough to tape my toes before a race. But I would have never thought of that. You don't want to tape your toes too tight. Maybe you can use that kinesio tape or something that has a little bit of flexibility. Maybe, I don't know.
You can make it tight with that
don't
stuff
tape
too. How about you, Tim? Do you have feet of steel, or have you had to learn some lessons along the way?
No, not quite, but I think Bob and I chatted a little bit about this. Is like, if your feet are starting to go downhill, take care of it right away. Don't wait until it's a total, I got to go see the doctor and spend 15, 20 minutes at an aid station, have them tape you back up. Just get the shoes and socks off, make a change, get dry socks, put some more lube on there and roll. But spending any more than, you don't want to spend too much time at it. There's good podiatrists at Forest Hill and a couple other places to get you out of there.
I'm curious for you two. You've had a lot of experience out there, not only at races, but training for these races. Do you carry a foot kit with you on longer runs or these races? Do you have duct tape or lube, or what do you do? Extra sock? Do you carry extra socks with you, or you just put them in the drop bags? What's your solution for that?
I'd always carry lube with me a little bit, just because you never know where you might need it. I didn't carry extra socks, but there are times when you're racing, right, and you don't want to stop for anything, so you just grin and bear it, right? You just go, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna, get in big bad trouble from blisters. It's funny because I think there was a survey done at Western States one time, and they said, what's the number one thing to knock you out of the race? And it was your stomach. But and what was the one thing that annoyed you? It was blisters. So blisters are going to be annoying, but they're probably not going to cause you to quit. Your stomach, that's a different deal.
What about you, Bob?
Yeah. Yeah, I take lube and then I wrap some KT tape and
Mm-hmm.
some Luca tape around like a pencil, and just it's real light and easy. But those are the two things: being able to either use the lube to cut the shear down, or if it's bad enough, then you put the Luca tape, which won't come off, and then you cover it with the KT tape, which will keep it from kind of rolling up on itself.
Nice.
Very good. Let's go to number 2. Tim, you want to introduce that one? Do you have the list as well?
No, go ahead and read it off. Is this the pachinko machine one?
No, not yet.
I think it's related. I think Bob said.
Stargazing is what's listed here.
I would say that's probably. I have an answer for this. This is the excuse to take a rest or stay out there all night long. You can take a rest and sit on the side of the trail and just be glad that you're alive. Watch the stars.
Stargazing. I think that's good, Scott. I think I'll just pivot a little bit, and I think it's just going to be a discussion about enjoy the beauty all around you, even when the sun is down. There's amazing sights and scenes out there. So keep your head on the scenery and out of the misery that you're creating for yourself. So I think it's enjoy the day. That's my guess.
Even close, Tim? Anywhere are we even close?
I'll vector to Bob and see what he says.
Nope.
It can't be. Well, here's my second. I'm going to do a second guess because as Don was talking, I thought, could this be a celebrity stargazing?
Ooh.
Maybe we know Jim Walmsley's coming back to Western States this year, and he has really done a great job over the years, and is one of the premier ultra runners in the world right now. Is it stargazing at the elite athletes?
Yep.
Oh,
there you go. This was related to the pachinko machine before the race. This is a pre-race.
Explain that, Tim.
Well, you get to Squaw, right, on the day before Palisades now, and it's just people are so buzzing, right, especially Friday morning to check in, and they're standing in line in the heat waiting to get their bib and their swag and make sure they're checked in, and they're standing out in the sun and talking to people and gawking over the guys that have won the race that are hanging out, and rather than just going, hey, I need to be focusing on checking in and then going to take a nap or resting, get out of the sun. There's some times where at the start on the day before it can be pretty hot and miserable, plus you're at altitude. If you're not used to that, that's a little different as well. So yeah, that pre-race, it's fun to watch. The level of energy between Thursday and Friday is really crazy, but now that we don't have to race, we can just sit there and enjoy it, and then you realize how amped up everybody else is. Right?
Do either of you get approached? I mean, you guys are legends in the community. Do you get approached for autographs or selfies?
Once in a blue moon, a picture here or there, but we're pretty busy that day too. We usually work the check-in booth, and then we mark the trail up the ridge right after the fun run in the morning. So we try to get out there and get some things done rather than hanging out.
Yeah, the only time I get approached is when someone thinks I'm Kevin Bacon. So,
and that is stargazing, truly stargazing.
Yeah.
All right, take us to number 3, Bob.
All right, so this one's spin dry.
Spin dry.
Well, I'm drawing a blank here, Scott. Spin dry.
These are a lot more cryptic than the last episode we did with you guys years ago.
Have you guys ever done this race? I know. Yeah.
No. I got a buckle off of eBay when it was going pretty cheap. Spin dry.
Well, I got a good story on this one. I got a good story on this one.
Yeah, and we're doing these sort of in order. You notice we started kind of in Olympic Valley, and we're moving ahead. So I'll give you a hint that you think about the start and going up the hill.
Well, we know that once you get to the top of the escarpment, that first section is either snowy or wet and boggy. So you're gonna get your feet wet. And so, and this is stuff that you shouldn't do. So I guess as you're running down the trail, you don't want to spin in circles or try to dry yourself. I have no idea what this one is.
No, Scott, I think you were onto something, and all of a sudden you lost your way because you spin in circles. I don't think that's what they meant. I think it's very tough to keep your feet dry when all that marshy stuff, the snowy stuff, you just got to turn your feet over and just trust and have some faith that spin is going to pound that water right out. And there's still another 94 miles to go. So don't worry about it.
Oh, is the spin of the leg turnover?
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
Ah.
And you helped me with that. You had me there until all of a sudden you took a left and I don't know where you went. So you get credit.
Well, neither one of you are even remotely close, but I love the creativity. So spin dry is, as people leave the start, everybody's amped up. And the temptation is to really run that hill pretty hard, or a lot harder than they ought to. And you have to remember that people are flying in a day or two before. They're not getting much altitude acclimatization, right? And you're climbing up to the highest point of the race. And so the air is thin and your lungs are kind of burning, and altitude will affect you in both kind of making your mouth dry and everything dry, but also can give you a headache if you start to push yourself too hard at altitude. And so the spin part is your head spins. And really the dry part is you get up there and you forget to drink because you're so amped up coming up that hill. You're going too fast. So don't push the first 3.5 miles too hard. Don't forget to drink, and don't put yourself into trouble with altitude right out of the chute, because once you start to get dizzy with altitude, it's tough to come back from that. You really have to go to a walk,
slow down.
And it's a while before you get out of altitude, so you don't want to put yourself in the hole. You know, you get up there at that beautiful spot at the Watson Monument, you look out and you can see the 97 miles out in front of you, and all you're thinking is, I am so dizzy, I am so dry, I am so in a hole. So don't do that.
Yeah. Let me tell you a quick story, guys. So I can't remember what year. It was later in my career, right? Maybe the 22nd, 23rd finish. And I was out just leaving Granite Chief, right? Where you kind of get out of the water bogs, and we're making that turn headed towards Lion Ridge, right? So you got, 7-8 miles in, you've been through some snow, and you guys know, you know the people who should be around you and who are around you in a race. So you kind of go, there's, friends I train with or people that are about my speed. But now if I saw War up there with me at mile 8, I'd be worried, right? So I'm rolling with this guy that I don't recognize, right? And I'm like, hey, we just chatting it up. He doesn't know me. I don't know him. We say, hey, where are you from? Out of town. Hey, you've run this race before? This guy, no. Has he run before? And I said, yeah, I've run a few times. And he said, and then we chatted on. He goes, oh, really? Did you run last year? I said, yeah. And he goes, well, what place did you come in? I said, like 4th. And he just hit the emergency brake, just like. What the hell am I doing here?
Why am I up here?
Well, mistake number 1 at mile 8, but it was so funny. Yeah, then I never saw him again.
I've got a question.
So it happens.
You've won
People
this race. We're talking.
Yeah.
You've won this race that's kind of sets a backdrop here 5 different times. My question to you is, when did you get or find yourself in first place? Typically, as you're running this, you've won it 5 times. I usually find myself, this is you completing the sentence, out in front by X. Where is that point? What mile?
Out in the middle of California Street. That's where the running was good for me, being a big guy running downhill. So I, just wanted to stay in contact until Forest Hill. And then that next 16 miles was one of my favorite sections of the trail. So I wanted to make sure I was, in the game there. And then I felt like, well, if everything equal from here, I should be okay.
Yeah, good. I never, I hadn't heard that. That question was for me. I hope everybody else enjoyed it too.
Well, I think we were talking to Ian Sharman on last week's episode, and we had always heard people say that the race starts at Forest Hill, and Ian said he thought that quote was accredited to Tim. That Tim was the original one that said the race starts at Forest Hill.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those where you probably don't want to take the lead until you plan to keep it. So, it's easier to just be there, and then when you're ready to go, and then never look back.
Yeah.
Good. All right. We've got,
All right,
I think we nailed that one, Scott. We've nailed that one. So
You guys are on a roll now.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the next one is Tim's, but Bob, you should probably introduce number 4.
Yeah. Tim, do you have the list? I sent it over to you.
Oh, number 4 is SpongeBob. Is that the one you're looking at?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a standard one. This is one where if you get a hot year, right, everybody wants to pour water on you and cool you off, and you need to do that. I'm not saying don't do that. You need to get into every stream you get anywhere close to and cool off. Take your shirt off or lay in there for 30 seconds, cool off. I always figured, that one little grotto after the swinging bridge about halfway, it's amazing how you can get into that thing for 30 seconds, cool way off, and then 30 seconds up the trail, you're sweating like a horse again. Yeah. But it helps, right? It helps. But this is the one where, and we watch this in our aid station is, if they're sponging you off, just don't let it get all over your shoes and into your socks, right? Sometimes they'll put like a garbage bag down over people's shoes. So you can get water poured over the top of your head, but you don't want it running down your legs and into your socks, or then your shoes get messed up. Because once you cross Duncan Creek, right, at mile 25 or so, right, there's dry running all the way to the river crossing. Right. So you don't necessarily want to have wet feet when you're out there, particularly early in the race, or someplace where it's generally dry, because you're going to end up blistering your feet up from all that water pouring down into your socks and shoes. Was that close, Bob?
Yeah, that's it.
What would you recommend if they don't have a bag to cover your feet? Would you just lean over
so
at the
somebody
waist?
can pour it over the top of your head, and then you can stand up whenever you want. And or like say, if you're just going by a creek, take your shirt off, dunk it in there, and then while you're walking up the trail, put it back on. It takes, 10, 15 second stop, and now you're cooled off for another, half an hour while that shirt dries, right? It makes a difference. Maybe one doesn't make a difference, but when you do that 20 or 25 times, that's a lot of help trying to keep your body cool, especially in the middle of the race when you're getting cooked.
Here's a question, and you probably know this, Tim, being on the board for so many years. Back in the early days, there probably wasn't a whole lot of ice on the course, so you had to take advantage of those stream crossings and cool off that way. Now there are loads of ice that go into each aid station. In fact, when we go down to El Dorado, we go down a little bit after the lead runners, and we take an entire pickup truck full of ice blocks and ice cubes down there. How many pounds or whatever measurement of ice is on the course now?
It's some ridiculous number of pounds per runner. It's like, 50 pounds per runner or something like that. Because we have ice machines, ice freezers out at Cool and then out at Forest Hill. So as people need them, like Forest Hill Aid Station or Michigan Bluff can shuttle back to there and pick some up. We can't where we are. We're down in a hole, but that's why we take extra down there. We never want to run out. But yeah, I mean, back in the day, there was no ice on the course. I mean, really, unless you were in, Forest Hill where you could go to the market and get some, you pretty much just dealt with what was out there. But yeah, now that's kind of one of the crucial supplies to the aid stations. And, we try to make sure nobody ever runs out.
And I've noticed the last couple years at El Dorado, manufacturers have made hats. They make sleeves that are specific for holding ice and keeping it around those large arteries and veins to cool you off. So I think it's just interesting, whether we're doing things better or whether we're maybe not as tough. I don't know.
That's a regular request at El Dorado, right? Oh, can you fill my bandana up with ice? Because they got those little pockets in there, and they let it drip down their neck. That's a great idea.
Into their shoes and socks.
It's a little harder for us in the aid stations. Like, another guy with a bandana that wants it filled with ice. We got to find some more ice. But yeah, that's a good one. And it kind of goes in with our next one too, because the next one had to do with the same thing. It was the live streaming, Bob. Those kind of go with the one before that, right?
Yeah,
I've got live streaming. Before you guys define live streaming, I think I've got the answer. So it's got.
You need a guess? Okay.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh boy!
So I'm pretty sure it came straight at me, and it couldn't. And you two have permission to change your answer to mine because this is spot on. Live streaming And you'll notice this if you're anywhere on a steep hill and you've got some competitive runners in front of you, there's some live stream. They actually relieve themselves hiking up the hill, and I'm pretty sure that's live streaming.
I think you're so far off.
No, that's a different one.
No, I think I'm
Tim,
exactly right.
I actually think that's a way better answer than what we have. So let's go with that. It's beautiful. Live streaming. Okay. That's what it is now. That's what it really is. We had intended it to be, well, it was intended to be a corollary to SpongeBob, which is on the very hot race days, when it gets up into the triple digits, it's always recommended that if you do cross a stream, lay down in it. Now, we just said don't get your feet wet, but there are exceptions. When it's that hot, Duncan Creek is probably, the first big one that you're going to come across is before you ascend to Robinson Flat. And there are others, even at Swinging Bridge. There's the grotto right after Swinging Bridge you can dunk into before you go up to Devil's Thumb, etc. It's amazing how much it lowers the core body temperature to just lay down for a minute or two and just bring your whole body temperature down, relax, kind of reset before you head on to the next leg. And so that's what we meant by live streaming, was don't neglect to dunk yourself at every opportunity.
Well, I
like that.
Yeah, I think they're both good. I like your live streaming as well.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to dunk yourself in other people's Don's version of live streaming.
I wasn't saying to urinate on a competitor, but
likely to be warm anyway. So
Yeah, that wouldn't help anyone.
All right, next one. I know you're going to get this one because we've talked about it on our runs over the years. Marinate until tender.
Ooh.
Yeah, thanks for putting the pressure on, Bob. Yeah. I looked at that and I went, this, and again, these are things you don't want to do.
You've talked to these guys about this, Bob. They probably can't remember.
Yeah,
I would say there's certain areas on your body that get warmer than others, and you don't want to let that marinate or just sit and do nothing before it gets tender and chafed. You want to make sure that you're applying a liberal amount of lube in those areas so that it doesn't marinate and get tender.
I like that answer, Scott, and I'm gonna jump into your camp, and I think that's why Tim earlier said, and Bob too, I always go on the long run with some lube of some kind, so you can find that hot spot that sneaks up on you. You can't predict. You can predict where they'll be generally, but the crazy part is that the body decides it wants a new spot. Like, I haven't had that in so long. That's why you have to have that lube with you. So
are we close?
Again, I think we like your answer better than ours, but no, you're not close.
Bob, I don't think these guys have been listening to you on those runs.
Yeah. Tim, you want to tell them what this one is?
Yeah, this is one where, the course is actually a lot of downhill, right? So there's some really great downhill, off of Red Star towards the Duncan, and then, really it's a half a marathon of pretty much of downhill from Robinson Flat to the Swinging Bridge, right? It's real easy, and that's when the day starts to get a little warm. And people tend to go a little bit too hard on the downhills before they get to the hard downhills. And so marinate is kind of like marinating your quads such that at a certain point, they're just so tender, you can't go downhill anymore. Even people that we've paced, I keep thinking of Coach a few years ago, Bob, when he was running, you could just tell his quads were shot. And we had talked to his pacer like, hey, you guys are doing good. Yeah, but man, we just could not run after the river because the guy just, wrecked his quads going downhill. And you guys know, that downhill into El Dorado Canyon is about as sweet as it gets if you love single track that carves a canyon. It's just butter. Yeah. But if it's 95 out and you're really rolling through there, you could blow up any minute once you're done.
In your collective opinion, you two, would you say that the Western States course is tougher on runners with the downhill or the uphill? And it descends, 23,000 feet, and it climbs 18,000. Are those the right numbers? What do you think takes more runners out, the down or the up?
Well, I'd say the downhill. I think
I
the
agree.
uphill slow, everybody's mostly walking and eating and drinking, right? If they're doing the
Mhm.
right thing, and then they get on the downhill. But the accumulative downhill combined with the heat in the middle of the course, where you've got big long downhills, which are great. I mean, great. I mean, they're easy running, right? You don't want to not go well through there, but you got to kind of just tap the brakes every once in a while. Make sure you can save some of that for when you get on Cal Street, which is really the best downhill running in the entire course, right? You almost have
Exactly.
16 miles of downhill or flat their whole way. I mean, that's 80% really good running, but if you can't run it, then yikes.
Yeah, you get rolling from like Deadwood down to El Dorado Creek, where we have our aid station, and you think, I'm going to shave 10 minutes off of this. I can really, just throw it in neutral and throw myself down the hill, which you can. Those 10 minutes beat the crap out of your quads. And then so now
Good point.
you get to Forest Hill and you have 16 miles of pretty sweet trail down to the river, and you're crippled. And that's where you can be picking people off, right? Because it's for normal runners. Tim wouldn't understand this, but other people actually have to run part of the Cal Street in the dark, and so you can start. And now that the fire's been in there in the first few miles, you can see every turn. You can see the headlamps way out ahead, and so you can start to play the game, reeling people in, kind of rolling down there. But if you don't have your quads, if you've blown them out, you're not getting them back. You don't have enough time to get them back in the race. And so it's like you can finish, but you've kind of screwed the pooch if you're going sub 24 or you want to finish with a smile on your face.
You use a headlamp in there, Bob? No.
Do you know what those are, Tim? There's those little things that you put in your pocket that you never take out of your pocket.
The best one I had, so California streets where a lot of people kind of go to just wreck themselves, but I was pacing my youngest son several years ago, and I was pacing that stretch through Forest Hill to the river behind the cutoff at 30 hours. So we're talking the guy's holding on for dear life, right? And we go by, probably in that 15 miles, we went past 5 people just sitting on the side of the trail with their pacer, not moving at all. And we were trying to pick up, hey, you guys doing all right? Come on, you're doing good. And they're like, yeah, no, we're fine. I'm like, no, you're not. You're sitting in poison oak and your legs are shot. Yeah, that's a good stretchy trail if you got legs.
I want to reiterate something you said, Bob, that I think needs to be emphasized. You think early on, here's a nice downhill section, and if I really push myself on this downhill, I may be able to get 10 minutes. But then you pay for that exponentially when you can actually, when you're on Cal Street or whatever, and if you have quads and you have legs in that section, you could gain an hour, maybe half hour. So I think that's good. And I will say that I've used a headlamp, or I needed a headlamp at Michigan Bluff the year I ran. So just to give you a perspective.
Yeah,
well, there's two things on that. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say, the question to ask yourself early in the race to say, would I be running at this pace at mile 80?
Yeah.
And then the other one, I think this was one of the great quotes by Bob Lind that he read way back when. He says, the race doesn't go to the guy that starts the fastest. It goes to the guy that slows down last.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. If you think like running, you get to Green Gate. So you get like about 20 or so miles to go, right? And it's good running. And the difference between running a 10-minute mile and a 15-minute mile. So in 2 miles, those 10 minutes are
Yep.
gone. And once you start to, ring in the 15-minute miles, it isn't just 2 of them. Now you're into this death march mode. And so you have to really convince yourself and hold yourself back and say, look, that whatever minutes I'm going to pick up here, the punishment I'm going to do to my body, right, is far greater a negative than the little bit of time I'm going to pick up here. And I think most folks that have not run Western States before really underestimate how much running you can do from Forest Hill all the way, home. I mean, it's a real runner's course, but you can't do that if you've let the altitude and all of the canyons that preceded you, right, kind of take it out of you.
Yeah, and you can don't even have to concentrate on the physical part of it. The mental part's kind of wrecking too, right? Now you got people blowing by you, you're barely moving, your legs just won't start back up, and you can keep walking, but that's not exactly that exciting.
Yeah. Good one.
All right.
The next
I
one
think
is
we're
charity.
ready to move.
Charity.
Love it. Love that
Yeah,
word,
I got an
you
inverse
guys.
on this one too. So I got the one and then the reverse of the one. So there you go. This is going to be a good one.
Oh.
So this is a layup for you guys.
Oh yeah, this is
I've already
stay out of the
get
chair.
this.
Yeah.
Stay out of the chair. Don't even consider it.
And I think it's a little bit deeper, Scott. I think it's talking to aid station workers to get yourself out of that chair. You don't need it. You're not running this race. Make sure your chair is available to any runner that needs it. Charity, get your butt out of the chair and let our runners but find it. That's charity.
Well, we were talking about that about our aid station. We asking Scott for the aid station pickup. We had standing room only there in El Dorado for a while there on that really hot year.
Yeah.
We had to coax people out of the chairs to make room for others.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I wanted to sit down.
Yeah.
Get these people going.
You. We did kick you out, didn't we?
Yeah.
You've hit your limit, Freeman. Move on.
What do you think, Scott?
I think Don's answer is better than mine, but I think if you can help it, don't sit down. Don't take the chair. Stay out of the chair.
Yeah.
Beware of the chair.
You're right on. Think about it. All of your training runs. Do you bring a chair with you? Do you train with a chair?
Yeah.
No, we don't have chairs. And so all of a sudden you go to this race and there's chairs everywhere and you feel almost obligated to sit down, right? To change your shoes or to eat or to put ice on or whatever's being done to you. But the reality is you're not trained for that. And once you get into that chair, it just sucks you in. And, it's amazing how 5 or 10 minutes can go by in a flash. Again, we're back to those, 5-10 minutes, just sitting there in a chair and you're sort of getting into a daze and you're eating and you're feeling kind of good. And you're watching these runners in slow motion go by you, right? That were behind you that have now left the aid station. And I think, honestly, it's not just beware of the chair. Just don't use it unless you absolutely have to. Because unless you've been training, with a chair, then you're doing something completely different than everything you've prepared for. Don't use a chair.
I think I'm making notes as we're recording this, and Don, you need to help remind. I think I'm going to start training with a chair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good point, Scott. Good point.
I can see Scott's Googling right now on Amazon for one of those midget chairs, the tiny little chairs that you take on fast packing, right?
Yeah.
You can barely get one.
I already have 2 of them. I have 2 of them. I'll share one with you, Don.
Good. And I'll accept it. But you sit down in a chair and you're 90 degrees. You can see yourself sitting. Your muscles are shortening up. And all of a sudden they start to cramp or they kind of like being shorter right now and not working. And there's a lot of internal dialogue that happens in the brain. Self-sabotage, the brain saying, yeah, we like this. Sitting in a chair is like really good. And this is what we should do. And running sucks. Yeah. You don't want to go out there anymore. It's hot out there and hard out there and a long ways to the next aid station. Just sit here in this chair. You don't need that battle too. You don't need that internal battle along with the course in front of you. So get out of the chair. Don't even sit in it. Kick it over. Come into the aid station and kick the chair over and say, not me.
you may get some people mad at you from doing that.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun at El Dorado Creek this year. Yeah. No chair zone.
No chair zone.
Let's go number 8. Pop, don't drop.
Yeah, this is,
and
let Tim do this one. This is a local, kind of a local hint or a local heads up for people that know about this. A lot of people don't, but we're going to tell everybody now so you don't miss out. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I don't even have a guess now.
It's like in the old days at American River when you got to Buzzards Cove, all the local guys worked there, and you knew that if you asked them just right, you could get an ice cream cone out in the middle of nowhere, right? These guys are boating it in, hauling it up a hill, but you had to ask for it. It wasn't general fare. So you go in there like, all right, guys, you got ice cream cone. You got a vanilla ice cream cone at mile 30, I don't know, 34. Well, the Devil's Thumb, which is probably one of the hottest parts in the race, hottest point in the race, you got the, 45-minute climb, for the regular pack out from the swinging bridge to the top of the hill, and they always have popsicles there. So before you leave, the easiest thing to do is just grab one of those popsicles, or two if they'll let you have to, and just walk out of the aid station. Keep your legs moving, but don't resist the opportunity to get that popsicle. It may be what gets you through the next canyon. I used to have a friend that worked at aid station. He was always the last guy at the aid station. He'd always hand me a handful of pretzels. That was like just karma, right? Whatever it was, he'd see me, he goes, "Here's your pretzels," because he just knew I'd want something salty to get down the hill, and it was just like, okay, good, now I'm good to go. Yeah, that's a spot where they usually have popsicles, and hey, that's a great place to cool down because you got that long downhill after that, and then the climb to up out of El Dorado. So pop, don't drop means grab the popsicle so that way you won't drop later. Get that popsicle.
And remember, you're not going to have a chair apparently down at El Dorado Creek anymore. So
we've hidden those. We folded them up. A runner comes in, we all get out of the chair and slide it underneath the table so no one sees it.
If you're handy, you can pick up all the popsicle sticks along the trail to El Dorado and fashion yourself your own chair when you get to El Dorado.
All right, next one is called sheer ignorance. What is that, Don?
Oh, sheer ignorance. So I'm thinking something thin, and I think it's something that you wear. Here's what I think it is. That it.
I love listening to Don think.
I was scrambling. So it's really not, you don't want to go out there with the shirt off, with everything exposed, letting ultraviolet just hammer you and take you out. There's some real wisdom in putting on something sheer and small just to block the waves, and it lets perspiration move. You can put water on it. So sheer ignorance. Don't be ignorant to the benefits of a sheer fabric to save you from ultraviolet catastrophe. That's what I think it is.
Wow.
I'm going to spin that a little bit, Bob, if I may.
You have to.
I'm going to say, don't be ignorant that people can't see everything in your sheer uniform.
That's better. I'm going for that.
Bob and his Lululemons.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, consistently your answers are better than ours. So I hope you're taking notes. What we meant by this was shear, which is what is the action of rubbing two things together creates a shear, which then ultimately works itself into a blister, predominantly on your feet. And so you want to avoid shear at all costs of something rubbing against the inside of your shoe or your sock, right, becoming a friction point. And so if you start to feel hot spots, the temptation is to ignore them and say, it's not a problem, make it go away. Or if you have a stone in your shoe, etc. And you just keep running. And then the next thing you know, the shear has developed a blister, which then can develop into something that is really debilitating. And although stomach problems are the number one reason people, according to the research, will drop out of Western states, I would guess, I think we're correct in saying number two is blisters. Some people ignore all of this, and they get to the point where their feet are just raw, and they just can't run anymore. They're so emotionally distraught, and they kind of let it happen themselves. So sheer ignorance is, don't be ignorant to the warning signs of the hot spots that are telling you stop, right? Fix it, or at least triage it until you can get to the next aid station, and then tell them and get it fixed so that you don't spend the last 6, 7 hours, 8 hours of the race, right, wishing you'd done that back, in the first third.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I think you nailed really the whole secret to being a successful, and how would I know, but we're talking to a couple of them, trail runner is recognizing early a problem that's coming. You think of anything with your quads go, cramps, stomach, heat, electrolytes, you're going to get an early warning sign for almost everything. Nothing sneaks up on you. These are not trains or a bus that hits you. You get plenty of clues if you're listening along the way, and chances to modify your run so you can avoid that catastrophe. I think that's what intrigues me most about the ultra running is that your body is constantly talking to you and giving you a chance to save it. But if you're ignorant to it and you don't pay attention, you're going to get hammered because physiology wins every time.
Yeah, part of that is the people that have never done 100 miles. This is their first 100-miler, right? They haven't been in that kind of twilight zone after 62 or whatever. So that's kind of a whole new experience. So it's a little trickier to know how to react. But yeah, pay attention.
That's a great one.
All right, we're going to do
All right.
two
I
more.
want to know.
We're going to do two more.
Okay, then you pick. You pick the two.
Yeah. So, Tim, let's do boiler bingo.
Boiler bingo. You guys want to take a guess at that one? I mean, I tried to make it easy for you, but
Yeah, a little too easy there. That's. I think we all know what you're talking about.
I don't.
No, I don't either.
Am I the one that's
No.
not? I think it just has to do with the heat of the day and knowing when to run and when to walk.
Oh, Scott, that's good.
We just talked to Ian Sharman, and he says sometimes you have the inclination that you should walk or run in the sunny sections and walk in the shady sections. And he said, no, do the opposite. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Or do I have it
No,
backwards?
run in the heat.
Yeah, run in the hot and then walk in the shade where you can spend more time cooling off. So I think that's the boiler bingo, is picking your right spots when to run and when to take it easy.
So you're expecting them to take a episode that hasn't been released and pull that information forward to this one. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that's what I did,
Ah.
but I'm sure they're smart enough that they figured it out on their own
Got
in their
it.
many years of experience.
Good. And I'm going to be in your camp, Scott. I think that's a brilliant guess.
Tim?
nope. Boiler bingo is one of those things where, like, we always kid, a happy boiler makes for a happy runner, right? If your stomach's together,
Oh,
90% of the problems go away, right? If your stomach's happy, your legs are probably happy, your brain's happy. And if your stomach's not happy, nothing is happy, right? So this is like, don't try to, save the world by trying new things on race day. Like, you get something offered to you in an aid station, and they almost all have same stuff. You probably train on gels and waffles and chocolate and salty stuff and all kinds of different drinks, but you probably don't want to stop if and somebody offers you a tuna sandwich or something. Go, oh yeah, that's it. No, probably not. So yeah, keep the boiler happy as long as you can, but when it goes, man, that's, you guys have been there, what it's like to lose your stomach, and then trying to get back to full throttle after that, that's a struggle. So keep that boiler happy. Don't take any chances on what you like to eat. Just stay with the stuff you're used to and roll on.
We've talked about this multiple times on the podcast, but I'll reiterate. I don't know what it is about me, but when I start feeling my stomach going south, I try to resist it. I just go, oh, no, I'm tough. I hold it down. And then once it goes, I feel a ton better. And I think, why didn't I let that go 2 miles ago?
Yeah.
And right now I'd have it back in under control. I don't know why I just hold back, and I should, once I feel that going, to Don's point, once you have the warning sign and you start feeling that acid reflux, just get rid of it.
Yeah.
Bob, do you have a strong boiler? Are you an iron gut?
I've had good fortune with my boiler, and I've had, as I get older, increasingly tough problems with blisters and feet. So I don't know why. It never, but yeah, I've been lucky. I've been really, knock on wood, I've been really lucky with the not having a problem with my stomach, ironclad stomach. But everybody, everybody's system is different. It's really interesting to listen to people's stories and what goes bump in the night. I also have a propensity to cramp. I don't know why. And it's kind of, once you start cramping, it seems like increasingly your body just goes back into a cramp. So I'm always looking for, new recipes from, we've all tried pickle juice and lots of other things in between, but I'm always looking for the next thing to resist cramp. Because I, like you, Scott, once you get that twinge, you know what I mean? It sort of sends a signal to you in your quad or in your calf, and it's like twinge. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know where that's going. And it's about an hour later, right? And then it starts to tighten. And then you step over a rock or something, and that's it. Boom, it goes. And then it's a war between you and your cramps, and then it's whack-a-mole. The cramp moves around, right? So you fix it on your left, it moves to your right hip, it goes from your hip to your shoulder. I don't know. I've had cramps in the most ridiculous, behind my ears. Who gets cramps behind your ears?
Hey Tim, I've always wondered, do the people that are racing for the podium, do they have stomach issues?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, shoot. I mean, that one year when after Walmsley had won, he ended up dropping out at 80. I think his stomach had gone. But yeah, it's not that unusual. I think everybody struggles in that. Sometimes it's either an eating mistake or, or you get dehydrated, so your stomach doesn't get kind of the nutrients it needs to take care of whatever it is you're pushing down through there. But I think, particularly on the hotter years, it just becomes that much more difficult to try to keep everything happy because it's just, you're out there for hours on end in the heat, and hopefully you don't make a mistake.
Yeah, good one.
All right,
so you said one more, Bob?
Last one's called keeping pace.
Keeping pace.
Wait, that's not on here.
Well, it doesn't matter, Scott. They're all new to us. We just got to be creative.
Are they throwing a curve? They're throwing a curve.
I'm sure it's curveball. Keeping pace.
Oh, Bob must have snuck that one in.
Well, it has to be pace related, right?
Well,
I mean, there's got to be some trickiness in here.
Keeping pace. I think it's difficult because it's too obvious, and so here's what I think it is. We've heard it from the beginning, and you hear every veteran yelling it out to the group: run your race. Don't keep up with everybody else. Don't look at that guy that you know is probably making that mistake of running too fast, and you're looking at that runner and going, that guy's behind me. He's miles behind me on training runs. How come I'm so far back? I need to keep pace with that guy. No, run your own race. That's what I think.
Don't find yourself at mile 13 running with Tim Twietmeyer.
That's right, yeah. Scott Warren. Don't run with Tim at mile 13.
I beat Tim up the hill.
Don't even line up with them. So keeping pace.
Yeah,
Scott, did you want to take a stab at it, or were you happy?
What do you
with
think?
That?
No. I thought you had a good one.
Okay,
that's a good answer.
It's a great answer. It's not at all what we're talking about, but it's a great answer. We're talking about pacer. So don't pick a pacer. Western States allows for pacers, and we have a lot of runners coming from around the world that aren't accustomed to pacers, for instance. So it's a new phenomenon for them, and it really is an advantage to have a pacer, for sure. And so there's the art of picking your pacer, and we've seen through the years some folks make a mistake where they pick someone and then they drop the pacer, which feels great when you do it. It's like this runner just joined me, fresh legs, and I'm already dropping them, right? I'm leaving them in the dust. Isn't this a great thing? And then that runner is gone off course, gotten lost, blown up, and et cetera. And so what's the use of having a pacer, right? If you can't keep pace, your pacer can't keep pace with you, or you can't keep pace with your pacer. So pick your pacers carefully, right? So that you don't end up, I think, Tim, this was one you brought up, and there's a place named, the most recent place that we've named on the course is called Walmsley's Turn.
Right.
And you might want to explain that one, Tim.
Well, that was where I think it was, I don't know what year it was, but Jim was out there by himself, and there's a turn where you have to go off a dirt road onto a single track, up a hill to get to the Highway 49 crossing at mile 90 plus, right? And he just missed the turn. It happens, daydreaming or, thinking about something else. And before you know it, you're off the trail. And, he didn't have a pacer anymore during the event. And, your pacer's there kind of to think for you. Because, after mile 80, I mean, you can't add two numbers together, much less, try to calculate how much more you need to drink or how much farther or how much longer it's going to take. You just want your pacer to tell you what to do. And so having a pacer that really understands you and understands how to motivate you and what makes you go and knows all the tricks to get you going, even if you've never run with that person. Sometimes, if you've been an experienced pacer, you can kind of, work the runner. We do it a little bit on the golden hour people, just run a few steps. We'll just run 20, walk 10, run 30, walk 20, whatever. But yeah, find a good pacer, because this is a unique race that someone else gets to share the trail as with the participant, with the runner in the race. And it's a great way. And some of the best of times you can think of is out there with your pacer, running well, telling jokes, funny stories, running into other friends that have pacers. You lock up together. Now you got 4 or 5 different people running together. Good times out there. But if you drop
Yeah.
your pacer or something else, you don't have a pacer, then not such good times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a shout
Yeah,
out
and
to all,
Bob's
to pacers. Pacers
Mhm.
play an incredibly valuable role in all the sport, but particularly Western states. It's a sacrifice to go out. Some of them will run the full 38 miles from Forest Hill, and some will break it up. But it's a selfless act to put yourself out there with a runner. Sometimes you join a runner that is expecting to finish in sub 24, and they're barely getting under 30, and it's a death march. And you stay with them, and you help them, and you move them along, and you encourage them. A lot of times they're strangers, and it's a very unique role to play in the community of ultra running. And for Western states, where it's so hard to get in to do it anyways, hats off to the people that say, well, I didn't get in, but I'm going to go pace someone. And hey, I'm going to learn the course better.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a front row seat to all the excitement by actually participating in the race. And the reward, I found the reward of getting someone across the finish line at whatever the goal is that they have, whether it's, 29 and 59, or it's sub 24, that reward to me over time has overtaken my own satisfaction of finishing, to be quite frank. And so it's a great thing. It's a thank you to the pacers that are out there this year and all the other years. And for those of you that have considered it, do it. Sign up. There's a portal on Western States. You can sign up, match yourself up with runners. There's still runners that are looking for pacers the night before the race starts. We know that. So go out there and sign up, or go to Forest Hill, where you can stand there at the pacer table. And when a runner comes through and they don't have a pacer, you can hold your hand up and say, I'll pace you, and jump in the race, and boom, now you're part of Western States. It's a great way to really experience it firsthand.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe one of the easiest ways to get in the race, as we talk about all the different methods to get in, that might be the easiest.
Yeah.
Your qualification is raising your hand. There are so many things that happen behind the scenes at Western States, countless things. One of the things that happens is an international barbecue that Bob Crowley has been responsible, along with the town of Auburn, putting together. Tell us about that international barbecue, Bob.
Well, thanks, Don. I just help organize it. There is a big team of people that pull it together, and we thought a few years ago, we saw the international runners coming from all over the world. They're a little disoriented. Some of them have never been in the United States or California. They're very excited about getting into the race, and they're pretty amped up. And so we thought, wouldn't it be nice to take the endurance capital of the world, Auburn, and provide them housing when possible, crews, pacers, all of the above logistics, as a way to welcome them, but also calm them down and make them feel more at home. And it really kicked in, and there are hundreds and hundreds of people in the Auburn greater area that do that every year for us. And so the picnic on the Wednesday before Western States in Auburn, that's a little barbecue, is just to celebrate the spirit of community in trail running. So it's the people that host, the people that crew, that pace, and then we invite the international runners, and then many of the legends from the past and everybody just gets a little sticker as to who their name is. There's no fanfare at all, and folks hang out for 2 hours, and they're meeting, all these different people, and it's really fun to see, because you'll have runners from Japan or from Argentina or from Vietnam, and they're standing next to someone like Tim or Shannon, one of the gang of four, and they'll say something like Tim said, "Have you ever run this race?" Tim will go, "Yeah, once or twice." and he's not being facetious. He just, it's super low key, right? And then as they have dinner, now they're sitting next to Bruce LaBelle, they're sitting next to Andy Gonzalez, right? And they realize they're surrounded, or one or two or three or four of the families that have put these folks up and have been involved with the race for 30 or 40 years as a volunteer. And they're surrounded by these people that are super knowledgeable and yet very, very humble. And that's the point, right? And it calms them down, and they get all this tremendous advice, and then we send them on their way, the next morning up the hill to Palisades. So it's a really fun thing, and we hope, and they go back to their homes and communities, and maybe try to do something like that when they have a race, because it's all about community, as we say, one trail, one heart.
I'll try to make this a brief story. I met a gentleman from Norway at that dinner last year, and I ended up, we exchanged phone numbers, and he needed a ride up to Olympic Valley to pick up his rental car. And I had time, and so I gave him a ride. And in that conversation, hour-long drive back up to Olympic Valley, I asked him, it was his first time in the US, and he said, my expectations of Americans was completely different than what I found. He said, I felt I had an expectation that they were selfish egomaniacs. And he said, it's a complete opposite. He says, I've been so impressed with the humility, the helpfulness, the friendliness of people in the U.S., and that stems from that international dinner. Before we end, Tim, one thing that you and Bob have been doing over the last few years to keep yourself entertained is you started this thing called History Expeditions, where you do a lot of historical research about groups or events that happened along or near the Western States Trail, and then go and reenact those events and make an expedition of that historical event. Tell us a little bit about that and what's coming up.
Okay, so yeah, that's let's see. We started in 2020 when we got way down the rat hole on the Donner Party story after reading Daniel James's Brown book, Different Stars Above, and that's when we did our first back. Then we did retraced the route, or found the route that the Forlorn Hope used. And if you haven't, that's a tip to people listening to this podcast: go pick up that book, The Different Stars Above, by Daniel James Brown. You'll enjoy it. That just kind of got us into it. Now that we're kind of past our racing years and ultras and whatnot, we participate, but not at the level we did 40 years ago. We both backcountry guys, so this fit right up our alley. History, and we like reading narrative nonfiction books, and so that kind of got us started. So we did that one. We did the Donner Relief Party, which is another whole story that's rich in American lore and characters, and then that kept us going. We retraced the track of the Grosh brothers, who were the original guys to find silver in Nevada, and that actually one of the brothers is buried in the cemetery out at Last Chance at mile 40 Western States. And just this year earlier, we retraced the original route that Snowshoe Thompson used as when he crossed the mountains between Placerville and Genoa, Nevada, on his 20-year trek of delivering the mail over the mountains in the winter. And so each year we try to pick one. We dig into some of these history stories and what might yield a good one. So the next one will be next fall, 2025, and it's going to be the horseback party of the Stevens Murphy Townsend party. So they were the original pioneers to take wagons over the pass into California. They ended up getting stuck in Big Bend near Rainbow Lodge. But they sent Horseshoe Party on ahead to get them supplies, and they went on horseback from near Donner Lake all the way through Auburn and into Sutter Sport, and then brought supplies back later on. And we're going to try to research that route that they took on horseback along Lake Tahoe and over to Auburn, and then down to Sacramento. We're probably going to start our trek in Auburn, but it's about 100 plus miles mostly on horseback, and we're still doing the homework on it. There's a lot of, we dig through all the books and all the references and stories, try to contact people that know people that either wrote the books or descendants of the people themselves, which is kind of semi-available if you dig hard enough and deep enough. And so we're kind of knee deep in research right now. But we're starting to get excited. See, Hal has finally got an expedition where he doesn't have to run. He's going to be on horseback. And the rest of us will be chafing and sore and tired. And he'll be like, what's the big deal? Yeah.
If you want to learn more, you can go to historyexpeditions.org. And of course, on social media, there's some really good visuals and great history there. And there's even live tracking when they are actually out on the expedition. You can track them, and it's been just really fun to watch and see what you guys are doing.
And they're doing some very important work. It's just not selfish, them looking for an adventure to hang their hat on. They have historical societies that they meet with before and tip them off on things to look for. And Tim and Bob's team are out there scouting and researching for them. It's quite a collective effort, and they do presentations afterwards where they bring in a number of people that are interested in to learn their findings. You guys have really done something important and special, and so well done. And you're making us look good as the trail community. So we all thank you for that.
No, appreciate that. And we're working with Hal right now. We're trying. It's Western States Trail related. We'll have more news on that to come, but we're really focused on, looking to future generations, making sure the Western States Trail is preserved, and so that everyone can use it, not just the races, Tevis or Western States, but anyone that wants to use it for in perpetuity. That's the goal, is to make sure that it remains long after we're gone.
Hal is Hal Hall. If you want to listen to just an enjoyable podcast episode, go to our archives and look up the episode with Hal Hall. It was a thrill to go to his house that is just on Roby Point. In fact, every Western States finisher will either run or walk by his house. Just a fascinating man with a lot of history on that course. Last thing before we go, I just want to mention the Trail Triage app. It's a free app that Bob Crowley actually spurred on initially and had the idea. It's available on Google and Android. It has the common things or issues that can happen to you on race day or whether you're training. We'll give you some symptoms and then give you some easy solutions that might help you cure or at least bring some of those problems to bay. It's free. It'll always be free. It's our way of giving back to the community.
And those answers or solutions have been vetted by ultra elite trail runners as well, put together by trail running doctors. Dr. John Anderson and his colleagues contributed to the solution. So this isn't Don and Scott going through the archives and pulling out some comments. These are credible sources that should be read and used and applied because they work.
And not Tim's old wives' tales. We're not doing those things. These are medically proven.
Boys, now if we could just correlate all those mistakes people made into that app, you just say, "Hey, boiler bingo. What's the solution?" Right?
We've got
it all fixed.
We've got another version coming out. It's going to have boiler bingo in it. Those terms are going to be found. Yeah.
Oh, it's a beautiful
There'll
thing.
be some gamification there where you have to figure out what is boiler bingo.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. Hey, we appreciate you coming on. We're super excited for the race coming up. If you're listening to this, it's the next day. And we hope that you actually get your shoes on, whether you're racing or not, and go out and run.
Mas.
Good luck,
All right.
everybody. Yeah, good luck.
Thanks, guys.